The door clicked shut behind Robert as he stepped into the honeymoon suite, his eyes locked on mine with an intensity I'd never seen before. In that moment, as my best friend crossed the room and pulled me into a kiss that upended everything I thought I knew about myself, I realized my wedding night with Claire was never going to happen the way anyone planned. My hands froze at my sides, the crisp white shirt of my tuxedo suddenly feeling too tight against my chest. Robert's lips were warm, hesitant at first, then sure, like he'd been holding back for years and couldn't anymore. The scent of his cologne, the same one he'd worn since our college days at Northwestern, filled the air around us. I should have pushed him away. I was a married man now, or at least I had been for 6 hours. The reception downstairs had just wrapped up. Claire was probably still chatting with her bridesmaids in the lobby, and here I was, standing in the middle of this plush suite overlooking the Chicago skyline, letting my best man kiss me like the world outside didn't exist. When he finally pulled back, his hands still gripping my shoulders, his breathing ragged, I stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "Robert, what the hell?" My voice came out hoarse, barely above a whisper. The city lights twinkled through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting soft glows across the king-sized bed that was supposed to be for me and Claire tonight. He didn't let go. His dark brown eyes, the ones I'd trusted with every secret since freshman orientation, searched mine desperately. "I couldn't let you do this without knowing Emmett. I tried. God, I tried for 10 years. But watching you say those vows today, I had to tell you, I'm in love with you. I've always been in love with you." The words hit me like a freight train. 10 years. College parties where we'd crashed on the same couch, late-night study sessions where his laugh made everything lighter, the way he'd always shown up for me no matter what. I thought it was just brotherhood, the kind of bond guys share when life throws curveballs. My family back in the suburbs expected me to settle down with a nice girl like Claire, build the life my dad had mapped out for the family business. Robert knew all that. He knew the pressure. And yet here he was, destroying it all with one confession. I stumbled back a step, my legs hitting the edge of the bed. "You're drunk. Or this is some kind of joke. Tell me it's a joke, man." But even as I said it, my heart was hammering in a way it never had with Claire. Not once during our 2-year engagement had I felt this electric pull, this terrifying clarity. Robert shook his head slowly, his tie loosened from the long day, his usually neat hair tousled. "I'm stone sober, Emmett, and I'm terrified. But I couldn't watch you wake up tomorrow regretting the rest of your life without knowing the truth." He reached out again, but this time I turned away, pacing toward the window. Below us, Lake Michigan glittered under the moonlight. Guests were probably still dancing in the ballroom. My parents were beaming with pride downstairs, thinking their son had finally done everything right. Memories flooded in uninvited. The summer after graduation when Robert helped me move into my first apartment. The two of us painting walls until dawn, laughing about nothing. The way he'd hugged me a little too long when I announced the engagement. I'd brushed it off as best friend stuff. Now it all clicked into place like pieces of a puzzle I never knew was missing. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just friendship. It never had been for him. And the scariest part? Part of me wondered if it had been for me too. "Robert, you can't do this. Not tonight. Not like this." My voice cracked. I wanted to be angry, to yell, to shove him out the door and pretend none of it happened. But my feet wouldn't move. He stood there, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen, waiting for me to decide what came next. The clock on the nightstand ticked past midnight. My wedding night. And instead of celebrating with my wife, I was here unraveling everything. We talked for hours after that, voices low so no one in the hall would hear. He told me about the nights he'd driven around the city after seeing me with Claire, how he dated other guys but none of them stuck because they weren't me. I listened, stunned, my mind racing through every shared moment, every laugh, every quiet support. When the first hints of dawn crept through the curtains, I still hadn't slept. Robert had crashed on the couch, exhausted from the confession. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I was supposed to face Claire in a few hours. The kiss lingered on my lips like a brand. Couldn't unfeel it. I couldn't unhear his words. And deep down, I wasn't sure I wanted to. The morning light filtered in, soft and golden, promising a new day that felt anything but new. I heard Claire's keycard in the door before I saw her. She'd come up early, excited to start our honeymoon in the suite before we flew to Maui. Robert stirred on the couch, his eyes meeting mine across the room in silent panic. This was it. The moment the truth would crash down on all of us. Claire stepped into the suite with a bright smile, her wedding dress from last night swapped for jeans and a simple blouse, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. Emmett, you won't believe how many people asked about our plans last night. My mom already texted asking if we... Her voice trailed off as she spotted Robert on the couch, then me standing frozen by the window. The smile faded. Robert, what are you doing here? I thought you left with the guys after the reception. The air thickened instantly. Robert sat up slowly, running a hand through his hair, avoiding her eyes. I felt my stomach drop. Last night's words echoed in my head. I'm in love with you. The kiss. The way my world had tilted on its axis. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out at first. Claire's gaze darted between us, her brow furrowing. Guys? What's going on? Emmett, you look like you haven't slept. I forced a shrug, but it felt wooden. We were just catching up. Old times, you know? The lie tasted bitter. Robert stood, grabbing his jacket from the chair. Yeah, I should head out. Congrats again, you two. But his voice was strained, and when he glanced at me one last time before reaching the door, the pain in his eyes nearly broke me. Claire watched him leave, then turned to me, crossing her arms. That was weird. Did something happen? Couldn't look at her. Instead, I moved to the coffee maker, busying my hands while my mind spun. How do you tell your new wife that your best friend kissed you last night and admitted he's been in love with you for a decade? How do you explain that part of you didn't hate it? The machine gurgled to life, buying me seconds. Nothing major. Robert's just emotional about the whole thing ending, I guess. College buddies and all. She softened a little, stepping closer to wrap her arms around me from behind. I get it. You two are like brothers. But hey, it's our honeymoon now. No more best man duties. Her touch felt wrong in a way it never had before. Comforting, familiar, but missing that spark Robert's confession had ignited. I turned in her arms, forcing a smile. You're right. Let's order room service and forget about last night. We ate breakfast on the balcony, the city waking up below us. Claire chattered about the flight, the resort, our future. I nodded along, but my thoughts kept drifting to Robert. Where was he now? Had he regretted it? My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from him? I'm sorry if I ruined everything. Couldn't keep lying. Call if you want to talk. Or don't. I'll understand. My thumb hovered over the screen. Claire noticed. Who is it? Work stuff. I lied again. The guilt gnawed at me. We dated for 2 years, engaged for 1. Her family and mine had merged businesses. This marriage was supposed to be the perfect next step. Stable. Expected. But Robert's words had cracked open a door I'd kept bolted shut my whole life. Growing up in the suburbs, the only son in a family that valued tradition above all, I'd learned early to push down anything that didn't fit the mold. Dating girls in high school, college hookups that felt obligatory. Robert had always been there, steady and safe. Now safe felt like a cage. By mid-morning, Claire suggested we head down to the lobby for checkout details. As we waited for the elevator, my mind replayed the kiss again. The surprise, the warmth, the way it had felt right even as panic set in. When the doors opened on the ground floor, I spotted Robert near the front desk, talking to the concierge. He froze when he saw us. Claire waved cheerfully. Hey, you didn't leave yet? He forced a smile. Just grabbing my bag. Flights later. His eyes met mine, and the unspoken question hung there. Claire excused herself to grab coffee, leaving us alone for a tense minute. Emmett, he started, voice low. Last night, I meant every word. But I don't want to destroy your life. If you tell me to disappear, I will. My chest tightened. You can't just drop that bomb and expect me to know what to do. People milled around us, laughing about weddings and honeymoons. Normal lives. Mine felt anything but. I need time, Robert. It's a lot. He nodded, but the hurt flickered across his face. Claire returned, and we said awkward goodbyes. As Robert walked away, I felt the first real crack in the life I'd built. Back in the suite, Claire noticed my distraction. You've been quiet all morning. Is it really just best friend stuff? I hesitated, then shook my head. Something like that. But the truth pressed against my ribs, demanding release. By afternoon, when we were supposed to be packing for the honeymoon, I couldn't hold it anymore. Claire, we need to talk. Her face paled as I stumbled through the story, skipping the kiss at first, focusing on Robert's confession. She listened in stunned silence, then stood up slowly. You're telling me your best friend is in love with you? And you? What? Feel the same? The question hung heavy. I didn't have an answer yet. But the look in her eyes said the morning truth had already started unraveling our marriage before it even began. Claire's suitcase sat half-packed on the bed as the silence stretched between us. Emmett, say something. Do you love him back? Her voice trembled, but there was steel underneath. I'd never seen her like this, the woman who'd planned our perfect wedding down to the napkin folds now staring at me like I was a stranger. I sank onto the edge of the bed, head in my hands. I don't know. I thought I loved you. I do love you in a way. But last night, everything shifted. She paced the room, her fingers twisting the new wedding band. We've been together 2 years. You proposed in front of both our families at Christmas. Your dad shook your hand and said you were finally becoming the man he raised. And now this. Tears welled in her eyes. Was it all a lie? It wasn't. Not completely. I cared for Claire deeply. She was kind, ambitious, the perfect partner on paper for the family construction business. But Robert's confession had forced me to admit what I'd buried since college. The nights I'd lain awake after hanging out with him, wondering why my chest felt lighter around him than anyone else. The way I dated girls to prove something to myself, to my parents, to the world. Growing up in Oak Park, where Sunday dinners meant church and straight expectations, being different wasn't an option. It wasn't a lie, I said softly. But maybe I was lying to myself. Claire sat across from me, wiping her eyes. So what now? We cancel the honeymoon? Tell everyone the marriage is over because your best friend kissed you. The word kissed hit like a slap. I hadn't told her that part yet, but her intuition filled it in. Did you kiss him back, Emmett? I shook my head, but the memory burned. No, but I didn't stop it right away either. The admission hung there. She stood abruptly. I need air. The door slammed behind her, leaving me alone with the suite that now felt too big, too empty. My phone buzzed. Robert again. Heard from Claire's sister. You told her. I'm so sorry. I never meant to blow up your life. I called him without thinking. His voice answered on the first ring, raw and tired. Emmett, you okay? We talked for an hour, words tumbling out in the quiet room. He reminded me of our sophomore year, when I'd helped him through his parents' divorce. How he'd crashed at my dorm for weeks, sharing secrets under the covers like brothers. But now I saw the layers I'd missed. I fell for you that first semester, he confessed again. When you smiled at me across the lecture hall. I knew it was hopeless, but I couldn't walk away. Flashbacks hit me hard. The road trip to Michigan our junior year, just the two of us, singing along to bad radio and talking until sunrise. The way he'd looked at me when I graduated summa cum laude, pride mixed with something deeper. I chalked it up to loyalty. Now it was obvious. Robert had sacrificed his own happiness to stay in my life, watching me date Claire, plan a wedding, become the man everyone wanted. My parents called next. Mom's voice was bright at first. How's the suite? Claire sent pictures of the cake cutting. "We're so proud, honey." Dad jumped in. "Business merger looks solid now that you're family." I swallowed hard. Telling them felt impossible. The conservative values they drilled into me since I was a kid, the whispers about those people at church picnics. But the truth was clawing its way out. "Mom, Dad, something happened. I need to come home and talk." They arrived at the hotel 2 hours later, faces etched with worry. Claire had texted them something vague. In the lobby lounge, away from guests, I tried to explain without breaking completely. "Robert told me he's in love with me. And I'm questioning things." Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's jaw tightened. "Questioning? Emmett, this is your wedding day aftermath. Cold feet, that's all. Robert's always been dramatic. Shake it off." But I couldn't. The conversation spiraled into arguments about duty, family legacy, what people would say. Dad mentioned the business partners who'd invested based on our stable marriage. Mom cried quietly. By evening, Claire returned, eyes red. "I can't do this right now," she whispered. "Take the honeymoon alone if you want. Or don't. I need space." She left for her parents' house, suitcase in hand. Alone again, I drove to the lakefront, the city lights blurring through tears I hadn't expected. Robert met me there without asking. We sat on the bench where we'd shared beers after finals years ago. "Whatever you decide," he said, voice steady despite everything. "I'm here, even if it's just as your friend." His hand brushed mine accidentally, sending sparks I couldn't ignore anymore. For the first time, I didn't pull away. The morning truth had shattered my planned life, but sitting there with him, pieces of who I really was started falling into place. The next few days blurred into a haze of phone calls, canceled reservations, and whispered conversations that felt like walking through minefields. My parents insisted I come home to Oak Park for family council, as Dad put it. The house smelled of Mom's pot roast, the same one she'd made for every milestone. But this time, the dining table felt like a courtroom. "Son," Dad started, folding his hands, "we've built this business on trust. Clients expect reliability. What happens when word gets out that the groom ran off with? Well, he couldn't even say it." Robert's name hung unspoken. I sat there, staring at the family photos on the wall, me and Claire at every holiday. "It's not running off, Dad. It's figuring out who I am." Mom poured more coffee, her hands shaking. "Emmett, we love you. But this isn't you. You've always been the steady one. College, job, marriage. Robert's confused you, that's all. Talk to the pastor. He'll help." Their words stung because they came from love twisted with fear. The same fear I'd carried for years, hiding behind smiles and girlfriends. Robert called every night. We met at our old coffee shop near campus, the one with the creaky wooden tables. "Your parents called me," he admitted one evening, stirring his black coffee. "Your dad threatened to cut ties if I didn't back off." I nearly dropped my cup. The betrayal cut deep, not from Robert, but from the people who were supposed to have my back. "They don't understand," I said. "None of them do." Misunderstandings piled up. Claire's family reached out through lawyers, talking annulment and business repercussions. Friends from the wedding texted mixed messages, some supportive, others ghosting. One old fraternity brother said outright, "Dude, if this is real, fine, but don't drag everyone down with you." The prejudice I'd only heard about in news stories now stared me in the face. Society's expectations weren't abstract anymore. They had names and phone numbers. Through it all, Robert stayed steady. He took time off work at the architecture firm to sit with me during late-night drives around the city, listening as I unpacked years of denial. "Remember when we hiked in Colorado after graduation?" he asked one night. "You said the mountains made you feel free. That's what I want for you, Emmett. Freedom, even if it's without me." His selflessness broke something loose inside me. I'd spent so long worrying about everyone else's happiness that I'd forgotten my own. A turning point came when I visited Claire at her sister's apartment. She looked thinner, eyes guarded. "I read your old journals from college," she said quietly. "The ones you left at my place. You wrote about Robert more than anyone. I think I always knew on some level." The honesty hurt, but it cleared the air. No screaming, just tears and acceptance that our marriage had been built on what should have been, not what was. She signed the papers without fighting. "Be happy, Emmett. Whatever that looks like." Family pressure peaked when Dad called a meeting at the office. "Sign these shares back to me if you're choosing this path." The ultimatum hung heavy. Robert waited outside in his car, refusing to let me face it alone. I walked out that day with nothing but my name and a decision. The sacrifice stung, but the relief was immediate. For the first time, I felt like I was choosing me. That evening, Robert and I sat on the roof of his apartment building, the Chicago skyline stretching endless. "You didn't have to lose everything," he said softly. I turned to him, really seeing him, the man who'd risked our friendship for truth. "I didn't lose everything. I found something I didn't know I was missing." Our hands found each other naturally. No kiss yet, just connection. The misunderstandings and backlash had tested us, but they hadn't broken what was growing between us. Weeks turned into months, and the fallout from that wedding night rippled further than I'd imagined. My old job at the family firm dried up overnight. Colleagues who'd toasted us at the reception now avoided eye contact in the grocery store. I moved into a small studio near Robert's place, the kind with creaky floors and a view of the L train. Money was tight, but the freedom felt worth it. Robert helped with odd jobs at his firm, introducing me to clients who didn't care about my last name or my choices. The rift with Robert came unexpectedly. One night after a tense dinner with mutual friends, he pulled away. "I feel like I forced this on you, Emmett. Your whole life upended because of one stupid kiss. Maybe you need space to figure it out without me in the picture." His words echoed the guilt he'd carried since the suite. I argued back, voice rising in his living room. "You didn't force anything. That morning truth woke me up. But if you keep pushing me away thinking you're the villain, then yeah, we're both losing." He disappeared for 3 days, phone off, leaving me pacing my studio replaying every conversation. The crisis hit hard. Alone, I drove to the lake where we talked after the wedding, sitting on the same bench. Memories crashed in. College laughs, shared dreams, the quiet support through breakups and failures. I'd sacrificed the easy path for this, but without Robert it felt hollow. Identity wasn't just admitting feelings. It was fighting for them daily. A breakthrough came when my sister called. She'd been the quiet supporter through everything. "Mom cried all night, but Dad's softening. He asked about you today." Small steps, but they mattered. I texted Robert a simple message. "Meet me at the bench. No pressure, just talk." He showed up at dusk, hands in pockets, eyes wary. "I was scared I'd ruined us before we even started," he admitted. We talked for hours about fear, about the prejudice we'd both faced in different ways. His coming out in college had been quiet. Mine was a public explosion. The reconciliation wasn't dramatic. No grand gestures. Just sitting there as the sun set, shoulders touching, understanding that love meant choosing each other through the mess. I started seeing a therapist recommended by a friend, unpacking years of internalized expectations. Robert joined for a session once, and we laughed through tears at how long we danced around the obvious. The sacrifice had been real, the betrayals from family and friends sharp, but they forged something stronger. By spring, life settled into a new rhythm. I landed a freelance design gig using skills I'd ignored for the family business. Robert and I took weekend trips, rebuilding trust one honest conversation at a time. The internal conflict eased into quiet confidence. I wasn't the man my parents raised me to be, but I was becoming the man I was meant to be. Summer brought its own kind of peace. Robert and I stood on the balcony of his apartment, the city humming below us like it had that first night. 6 months since the wedding that never really happened. My parents had started inviting us to Sunday dinners, awkward at first but warming. Dad even shook Robert's hand last week, muttering something about giving it a chance. Mom hugged me tighter than usual. Small victories, but they added up. Claire had moved on too, sending a card from her new place in California. No bitterness, just well wishes. I turned to Robert, his profile lit by the setting sun. "Remember when you walked into that suite and changed everything?" He smiled, the same crooked grin that had won me over years ago. Best decision and worst nightmare all at once. We didn't need grand words anymore. The journey had taught us both about sacrifice and awakening. Friendship had become love, not overnight, but through every hard choice and quiet morning after. The internal storms had quieted. No more hiding from mirrors or questions. Society's stares still came sometimes, but they bounced off the armor we'd built together. Family ties mended slowly, proving blood wasn't thicker than truth. Robert's hand found mine, steady and sure. "Whatever comes next," he said, "we face it together." I believed him. The boy who'd kissed me on my wedding night had become the man who'd helped me find myself. Life wasn't perfect. There were days the old doubts whispered, but they grew fainter with every shared sunrise. We'd earned this, through tears, arguments, and the courage to choose love over comfort. Standing there, Chicago stretching endless around us, I felt the full weight of growth. From shock to acceptance, from denial to embrace. True or false? One honest moment on a wedding night can truly justify destroying the life you built for everyone else?